Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Autonomy Pods podcast. I'm really excited to bring this episode to you. Actually, as you might hear, I'm feeling a bit worse for wear. I ended up getting my second vaccine and both vaccines whilst I was here in Miami, and they've completely sent me west, especially the second one. So excuse the bunged up feel that you might hear, but that's just a part and parcel of getting over and getting this moderate dose of the vaccine. So now I'm fully committed to the vaccine life, and hopefully that'll help in the next couple of years as we probably move to a position where most people need the vaccines as they come through the weeks and months of traveling or just any type of moving around between countries. This week we're going to talk about what actually coaching is. I think um, there's a perceived nature of what you get from coaching, but I'd like to talk about my experience of what I believe coaching actually is, and the multitudes of different type of coaching that I've had in my life that really gives you the commonalities of what real coaching is. So often people start a journey and they want the result or they want the end product rather than the process, and that's totally normal. You come on board wanting to have, let's say for example, if you get a tutor for Spanish, you don't get a tutor for Spanish just to talk to the tutor. You talk to the Spanish tutor by wanting to learn Spanish to a significant level. You're getting a financial advisor to help you manage your finances, not for the financial advisor. So, and same with coaching. When you're looking to get a fat loss coach or someone that helps you change the way that you look, you're looking for the way that you change your body rather than the coaching itself. So the coaching nature is very much independent to the individual and what they need at that moment in time. Often the first step around coaching is that coaching requires something called coachability, which is in essence the ability to be coached and the ability to take on feedback and create change to the problems that you're having and solving problems every single week. The goal of a coach is to provide you with the information for you to go from point A to point B quite simply. But the coachability from a client's perspective or from the person who's taking on the service will be for them to be able to take on feedback and make changes to their day, their week, their habits, their mindset, their actions on a day-to-day basis to get from point A to point B. Now, often coachability is something that is not considered from a coach's perspective when onboarding clients. When you're new to the business or you're just trying to make a name for yourself, you take on any client from left, right, and center, where it doesn't matter where they come from. If they want to purchase your services, you will bring them on board. And that's fine for a while until you realize that not everybody is ready for coaching or has that trait of being coachable or has that coachability. As you go through the years of, years and years of thousands of clients, you realize that there's common denominator between people who are coachable and who are just not ready for coaching. But that's only to the perspective of the client's ability to be able to change. Coaching is only as good as the ability to implement and the ability to take on feedback and have conversation. I know people, and I know that there's hundreds of people in this world that have probably never been in a situation where they need to be coachable. A lot of our day-to-day aspects and what we do are driven by reactive natures. They're driven by impulse, and they're ultimately, if you don't like something, you can always run away from it and do something different. Whereas coachability is about being able to weather the storm and being able to go through a specifically tough point or a problem and find that solution and do something about it. And once you have this trait with being a client, or when you have this trait working with other individuals, you'll find that the coaching will never ever be an issue. You'll find that the problems or the feedback or any type of implementation is never an issue because you're not searching for the wrong thing. The best people that I've ever worked with have always been people that work within like businesses or teams, and they know what management really is like. Management is effectively being coachable, or having a team is has the awareness of you being able to coach other people, which gives you that understanding of how coaching really, really works. If you're just a worker and you're working some job, or you've never had management experience, or you've never had the ability to lead a team, you won't really truly understand what coachability is unless you've had a good experience or you generally have a growth mindset around about getting better and improving. There's a large percentage of our country and a large percentage of the world that have this fear of failure and this fear of, not being 100%. And this is quite crippling, the all or nothing mentality. And this will be absolutely crippling for anybody that is wanting to get coaching, because coaching relies on failure. Coaching relies on you finding a problem, which is inevitable because you're not doing something that's stopping you from getting the results that you want, and maneuvering to a point of where you're doing those specific things over time. So if we have this all or nothing mentality, if we have this mentality of I don't want to fail, we miss out on the whole aspect of coaching. You might as well at that point in time just have a plan and not a coach. Coaching is for those and is only really effective when there is the ability to fail and the ability to practice. So before we even get into what constitutes of online coaching or what I believe is a good practice for online coaching, we have to look at the first nature of coaching, which is there has to be a relationship between two people that are willing to work within the confines of failure, practice, and communication. If one of those three things are taken away or not done, then the relationship or the coaching experience will be tainted. Either the client won't get results because they're not solving problems, or the client experience will be poor because they're not communicating well. And that will break down the whole level of your results or your ability to have a positive experience with coaching. Now, coaching comes in different forms, but at Autonomy, we like to be really, really plain and simple with our coaching process. The goal for most people when coming in have a fat loss goal or a specific goal related to their visuals. It's absolutely essential, which I've spoke to on multiple podcasts before, is that you have targets and expectations at the beginning, and you create those in a view for them to change over time, but have them so that you can aim towards something. Coaching and the ability to be coached does rely on goals. Otherwise, what are you coaching for? How are you coaching? And what are we really keeping accountable if there really is no targets being set? Now, targets can be overwhelming. I love setting targets with, my fitness stuff, but I hate setting targets when it comes to my business because it feels real when you put it down on paper. And I've struggled with it for a while. And a lot of people feel like this when they come towards their fitness goals. Maybe they've failed before. Maybe they have never set targets before, or every time they've set targets, they've always failed. So they will be apprehensive of setting more targets because they feel that sets them up for failure. And for some, it's not about actually the target itself. It's about the magnitude of the target. If you've always targeted 20 weeks, 20 kilos off, and you've always disappointed yourself by not coming through on that, then your targets need to be a lot more closer to home and a lot more reachable and manageable, making it super easy for you to hit those targets to build momentum. Targets are never a bad thing. That only the magnitude of the target and the expectations of what that target is going to give you are the things that make it usable, real, and achievable. So once you've got that target in place, your coaching journey can then start, because the coach and the person that you're working with can reverse engineer where you're coming from, where you're going to. You're going from that A to that B. How long is that going to take potentially? What do you have to do from get to A to B? If you take that into a financial advisor's position, if you come to a financial advisor and say that you want to be a millionaire in 2 years' time, they will reverse engineer something for you, but you might not like the idea of what they got to offer. You might think, actually, that's too aggressive of a saving plan. I don't have that much income coming in. And therefore, you have to then lower your expectations of what can be achieved over that time. And a good coach and coaching always manages expectations. They always tell you what you can achieve, if it's really possible for your lifestyle, and whether you can really commit to the terms and conditions of what that's going to ask of you during that time frame. That's when the coaching can begin. Real coaching gives you a framework. We give people a framework, and we talked about this before, about structure, about what needs to happen and when, and then what you need to do on a day-to-day basis to get that done. And there always has to be a feedback mechanism. There always has to be something every single week or very, very frequently to be able to see if we are having a great week, a poor week, if we've hit all our targets, if we haven't hit our targets, and very much like KPIs, monitor how we're doing towards that bigger goal, which is then going to see out this process. As you perform these targets over time, this is when you'll see when the problems start to arise. You may be absolutely perfect at home. You may suck at weekends of being able to manage your calorie intake. You may suck with the consistency. So after 2 weeks, when you're doing it perfect for 14 days, you suck at the ability to do the third week or the fourth week. You might be great with training until the weights get heavy, and then you chicken out of not pushing hard, and then you really struggle to make progress on the weights, which leaves you demotivated. There's always going to be problems to solve, and the coaching process does that for you. So that is effectively, in a nutshell, what is coaching. As part of the coaching process of autonomy, the nail in the coffin really is the individual things that make up every single week. So you'll have nutrition targets. Calories are really, really important during this time frame, because that's what creates a calorie deficit. That's what creates the fat loss. And ultimately, that's what gets the results. Managing that as best as you can over the course of 10, 15, 20 weeks will determine effectively how much body weight that you lose. It's the only thing that matters in the most highest form. If that is not managed, then fat loss cannot occur consistently. So managing that element, and when people say abs are made in the kitchen, they really are. Nutrition is 100% of the game when it comes to fat loss. If you want to look differently when you finish your transformation, training then has an importance, because it's not just about fat loss, it's about muscle gain and muscle retention, which comes from training and eating protein. So there is an order of importance of how coaching works, and every coach should have their list of priorities that works towards that goal specifically. For the most part, coaching and fat loss coaching will be around how to get you to follow your diet as best as possible, or stay within a caloric deficit for as long as possible, with intermittent bouts of social events and things like that, which can be managed effectively with strategy. Outside of that nutrition, that training, other variables will make it easier or harder for you to stay on course with your diet and that consistency within that nutrition. How much you sleep will determine your hunger levels and how much you can cognitively function, which will affect your food choices. How often have you been in that situation where you've had 4 hours sleep and you're just ravenously hungry all day, and you just make some poor choices around food? Happens very often. So managing things like sleep, or coaching you through getting better sleep, coaching you through managing stress and being able to not emotionally eat when things get hard, is going to be a really important factor. Managing your daily activity, so how many calories you burn on a day-to-day basis, will help the fat loss magnificently. Managing these variables all in one go is how the coaching really starts to be an art form as opposed to just numbers. Because we're dealing with humans at the end of the day. Humans suck. We're inconsistent by nature. We have an emotional brain, and we have a logical brain, and we have rational thoughts. We have irrational thoughts. We have times where we want to check out and we don't want to do it anymore. We have periods of where things really hit us emotionally, and managing that is an art form within a relationship. And that's where a relationship between a coach and a client is built. It's built within the times where things aren't going too well, or the support mechanism that the coach gives to the client throughout the process of coaching. And hopefully, as they go through these periods of triumph, they celebrate their triumphs. They reflect on their biggest wins, and almost challenge you to take one of the negatives and move it into a positive week on week. After you can do this, and you manage this art form for a long period of time, like an orchestra, with the violins playing and the trombone playing and the flutes and the triangles are all hitting at different points. Very similar to how nutrition, training, sleep, stress, they're all interlinked. They're all playing at the same time. And the better you can be that lead person to manage all of the different instruments, the better the orchestra will sound. And that's a very good analogy for how it works within this fat loss diet. If your person at the front is telling the violin to not work as hard, it doesn't sound as good when they're all working together. When everything is working and firing on all cylinders or all strings, that gives you the ability to make the best sound, get the most progress, and get the best results. But not everybody is able to orchestrate a full orchestra. It takes time to practice how to manage these variables. And coaching is such a very variable sport, in which you coming in is a different layer to someone else coming in. Your coachability may be different. You may have issues taking instruction. You may be great with thinking that you know where you're going, but then going in the opposite direction and taking instruction from other people, you may really struggle with. You may struggle with the nutrition side of things more than someone else because of your past history with your dieting. You may struggle with training because you really fucking hate it. And you may struggle just in general with routine and time management because, well, in essence, if you can't manage your time, you won't be able to manage your mindset, you won't be able to manage your physical side of things, and you definitely won't be able to manage your emotions if you're not managing your time effectively. So like the orchestra, once you've practiced being able to manage the violin, the triangle, the bass, the drums, whatever it is, and the flute and the singers or whoever's there, the more fiddles that you can play with, the more instruments you can orchestrate at the same time, the better your results will be and the sound will be of the orchestra. And when you can get all of those firing, or as many as those firing consistently as possible, that's when the results really start to come in. If you really suck, it doesn't mean that you give up playing. It means that you start with one instrument and then move up to the second instrument. Once you get that nutrition locked in and you get more consistent with it, then you can start adding the training side of things or adding the steps. And that's the beauty of coaching, that it doesn't have a hard start and a hard finish. It's completely individual to the person that you're playing with. The timeframes don't matter to anyone else but yourself. The how long it takes you really doesn't matter. Because if the goal is worth it, it's worth it. Whether you want to lose 5 kilos, whether you want to lose 10 kilos, there's always emotion and there's always the mentality behind it. Because really the 5 kilos or the 10 kilos that you're trying to lose isn't the thing that you're trying to lose. The thing that you're trying to gain is how you will feel once you do that, how you'll act once you do that, what your mindset will be when you do those certain things and get that certain result. Because you're coaching, or you're getting coaching not for the 5 to 10 kilos. You're getting coaching for the rest of it, all of the stuff that you will get from doing those certain things. You know, training sucks sometimes, but the way you feel afterwards makes you feel great. Or choosing the salad or the lower calorie option versus the massive pizza and beers. In that moment in time, maybe a difficult decision, but in 1 or 2 days' time, when you're feeling much better, you're not bloated from the pizzas, or you're not having disturbed sleep from the alcohol, you'll be feeling the benefits of it. So you're not paying or you're not coaching to get the 5 to 10 kilos. You're coaching for the benefits that they will bring. And it's such an individual sport where, like I said, it's not about anyone else's time frame or how long someone else did it for. Coaching is about you versus you versus you versus you every single day. And as long as you can practice, and as long as you can have that trial and improvement, as long as you can figure out and try and work that orchestra better every single day, the results will come over time. And I always say to clients that it's not a case of if we will get you in shape, it's a case of when and how long it's going to take. Because the coaching is relatively, once you know what you're doing as a coach and once you're experienced enough like we are, you know what will tick the boxes, you know what will get great results. But it's about that individual in front of you being able to do those things and practice them enough to be able to reap the rewards. When you start juggling, or if you want to bring on another analogy, but when you want to start juggling, you start with one ball and it's not impressive and it's not fulfilling when your goal is to do 4 balls. But you have to start with one, and you have to get better at putting the placement in the left hand and the right hand and right hand and then the left hand, and being able to catch it and catch it and catch it every single time. And whether you're someone that can start a diet and be able to, in quote, like be able to juggle 2 balls, you still have to practice those 2 balls for a period of time before you can move on to 3. And with the coaching, you will inevitably struggle in one variable place or another. Some people do a dieting phase and they don't struggle at all because that wasn't their struggle. Their struggle was probably maintenance afterwards, their ability to keep the weight off in the long term. So they will find that dieting is relatively easy. And from the outside looking in, from the pictures, from Instagram, whatever, they will look like they had an easier time than you. But they just don't have the same struggles as you do. And that's where coaching allows you to find that awareness, because you may be completely oblivious to what you struggle with. We have cognitive bias where, we forget some of the shit stuff and only remember the good stuff. And we forget what we did in these scenarios because it was painful or it was rubbish. So we forget about it. So the coaching process allows for finding something that you can highlight that is a problem, to seek it out to get better with. And that's that coachability again. Because if you're not prepared to be able to seek out your flaws in order to improve them, 9 times out of 10, the flaws that you're currently facing are the things that are stopping you from being in the place that you want to be. And it isn't just getting better at the stuff you're already good at that makes the difference. You could have amazing training and you could train every single day and you could do 15,000 steps every day. But if you eat like a dickhead and you eat way loads of calories compared to what you burn, you're never going to get the results that you want from a fat loss perspective. You're just going to train okay, have lots of energy to train, and you're going to do loads of steps. But if your goal is fat loss and you want to remove the body fat around your body, then nutrition is the key for that. So it isn't about just getting better at the stuff you're good at. It's actually about improving on the things that you're crap at. And once you find these factors, once your coach sets out a step target, once your coach sets out your nutrition, your training, your check-in process, your time management, your routine, your sleep, your stress, and how to manage these things, when you don't do them, they shouldn't be viewed as a failure. They should be viewed as highlighting areas that you need to improve. And once you go away and improve those things, 10 times out of 10, those things become better. And then it improves the overall result of what you're trying to do, which makes it easier for you to accomplish your goals. So coaching is a skill, and getting coached also is a skill within itself. You may not be ready for coaching. As you've imagined, if you have this all or nothing mentality, if you can't take feedback, if you can't implement things after someone has told you how you're doing poor, or you view every single pinpoint of something that you did negative as a failure rather than a learning point, you'll need to do some work on yourself before even attempting coaching, because coaching will never work for you until that point happens. So it's really important that before you start a coaching journey, you understand if you are ready. Understand whether they're a right fit for you, if you are a right fit for them, but ultimately if you have the minerals of being able to be coached. And as a coach who mentors coaches, you coaches need to have a better understanding of what coachability is. Once you can create coachability, or you can teach it, which is definitely a skill, but ideally your clients who come on board beforehand are already coachable, you then have a greater ability to change, a greater effective change, because those people that are coming on board will welcome challenge. They will welcome finding problems and opening solutions. They will welcome the need for highlighting the areas that they're worse at, to be able to get better and not take it personally. So coaching is a skill, is an art form, and ultimately isn't for everybody. But hopefully by understanding and listening to this, you feel like you may understand what coaching is. The variables of what we get, whether that's nutrition, training, steps, they're so minuscule in importance compared to the overall need of being coachable. Because the things like steps, training, nutrition, sleep, stress, all of those things will change over time depending on your goals and how well that it fits into your lifestyle. But what will never change is the need to pick out flaws or pick out areas of weakness within your day, within your week, within your mindset, and be able to improve them over time. And if we're not ready for this on both sides, like from a coaching perspective or from a client perspective, we'll always really struggle with coaching. And that's going to be quintessential to your growth as an individual and your ability for your clients to get growth within themselves. And maybe just by listening to this, you can assess the current clients that you have, or the current relationships, if you're a client, or the current relationships that you have, and whether you are truly able to be coachable. I hope you enjoyed this episode. More like a fucking poem, I feel like. But hopefully you understand what coaching is. Like I want to kind of bring across some more minuscule topics to be able to really get into what we believe these certain things are, and hold no punches in the best calm, natural way as possible, to help people understand what things like coaching are, because it's not easy. It's not something that is just everyone is for. And actually, it's like there should be an entry criteria for these type of coaching. And what ends up happening is that the relationships between people end up being broken down because of this inability to either be coachable or to communicate during a coaching process. And I want to make sure that if anyone listens to this and from Autonomy and they're looking to, come on board as part of our coaching, we want to make sure that you're the right fit for us, and you're in the right scenario to be coached. Because without that, we don't want to create a relationship without it actually being fruitful. We want to be in the best situation possible to be able to create those relationships and give as best as we can to our situations. So hopefully that makes sense. And look forward to our next episode at Autonomy Pods. Cheers.